Hey everybody, it's GG for GB, and I did a video with my brother, and we are playing around with how the titles that Watchtower has on JW.org and how they never really have titles or discuss topics that are of real interest to you and that could benefit you. And that the articles are very lame, they're very stale, they're very short, and you really like in the movie. I think it was Billy Madison, the movie, when he goes, "Everyone is 10% dumber for having heard your rant," and it is true. When you read the JW.org articles, you feel dumber after having read 2, 3 paragraphs after what you would think would be a very important topic. But then my brother Jesse and I were saying, well, wouldn't it be interesting if I was there as GG for GB, and then I was in the writing department, and then I would use this picture that you see here, and I would say, well, what does Jesus think about mortgage fraud? How come Watchtower never talks about subjects like that, mortgage fraud, and why mortgages and why homes are very expensive? Now, let me just show you this clip here. It's just a search on YouTube that I did, and and it says basically, is BlackRock buying single family homes? So the first article is video is, why is BlackRock buying single family homes? Well, if you do a little research, technically they're not buying any homes. But the second video says, is BlackRock buying single family homes? Well, you can make a case that they are. And then that'll take you to the third one, which would be, are you competing with BlackRock to purchase single family homes? Because you see, what Watchtower won't tell you, because they're dumbed down magazines in their Awake or Watchtower magazines, is, are you competing with BlackRock? Because these big corporations are buying 1 out of every 3 homes in Phoenix, Atlanta, Denver, Nashville, Dallas, and so forth. So these metropolitan areas, 1 out of 3 homes is being purchased by, here people are saying, BlackRock. But you go to BlackRock website, it says, no, we're not doing it. But they use the famous word private equity. And so a lot of people, that's what all of these YouTube videos are about. They're like, are they not? Are they doing it directly and indirectly? And then these are just the 4 pop-up questions on YouTube. These guys are quietly planning to buy the rest of the homes in the world. And I should have scrolled down a little bit more, but so a lot of people are making these accusations that it's these big corporations through big central banks that are buying everything, and you will own nothing and you'll be happy. So everybody has to, so BlackRock or their private equity partners are buying 1 out of 3 homes and paying 20, 30, 40% more than you would have paid, and they're pricing you out of the market and they're making you rent. That's what these people are saying. Well, a lot of people will say, hey, this is illegal. And not only that, it's how can you compete when these private equity firms are, according to some of these videos, are getting interest rates at less than 1%. So if the single family is being charged 7% on a loan, and these private equities owned by who knows who are getting these homes at less than 1%, well, there's a huge competition factor. And then the closing costs that a single family would pay versus what these mega corporations would pay is apples and oranges, big difference. So the fact that they're getting free money, easy money from central bankers, and they're pricing regular mom and pops out of the home purchasing. They're making it unaffordable. Why would Watchtower not talk about that? The other thing is this news article on the Gateway Pundit. And this is a very important article because in the article it says Ed Martin urges, who's I think one of the attorney generals with Donald Trump, he urges Powell to remove Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook amid Department of Justice investigations into alleged mortgage fraud. So just think about this. She's one of the very few Federal Reserve governors, and they're saying, hey, you need to talk to the board, right? Jerome Powell, who's above all of the Fed governors, and say she's guilty of mortgage fraud. She should lose her job. She's a governor of a Federal Reserve governor. Why is that not on Watchtower's magazine? So, and the question is not whether you can see the evidence there, but that's not the question. The question is, how deep does this go? If she is one of the governors of the Federal Reserve, I think like there was 7 or 12 governors, right? So she's one of the governors. How many other people all over Washington, D.C., all over the United States are also guilty of mortgage fraud? Is this an isolated incident? Is it not? And why isn't Watchtower talking about these things? Because this affects us as individuals. Well, it takes us back to the JWorg that I superimposed the title. Does Jesus care about mortgage theft? The Bible answer may surprise you. Well, you see, Watchtower lends money to the Jehovah's Witness congregation to build kingdom halls. And they even charge them interest. Many of you that were old timers in the 70s and 80s and 90s would remember they would give you a loan. I was an elder at the time. And you see videos on YouTube where elders talk about supposed interest rates. But if we want to talk about mortgage fraud and mortgage theft, Watchtower never ever has sent any congregations where I'm from in Yuma, Arizona. We've never received a statement on account like Wells Fargo or B of A give us, right, when you purchase a home. Every month you'll say, thank you for the payment that you've made. This is the new payment. Here's the coupon. And this is how much we charged you in interest. This is how much went to principal. And this is how much is in your escrow account. Well, Watchtower never, ever did that. So when an elder complains, what happens? He gets disfellowshipped. So is that not mortgage fraud? That we're going to lend you money, we're not going to tell you how much you owe, and then if you complain, we get rid of you and just bring in a young kid, give him a title, and then you steal the property, you sell the property, and instead of leaving it in the hands of the local people that been paying for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, you just simply take the proceeds. If that's not mortgage theft, I don't know what is. And in the state of Arizona, if you want to open up a business and you want to do a buy here, pay here on cars, or you want to do like finance appliances, or just be a finance company. Well, you can't just go and get a license. I want to lend money out. No. You can get a license, but you also have to go with the Secretary of State, and there's a certificate on the wall. And in that certificate, you register with the Secretary of State that you are going to abide by certain standards of lending, and also how you tabulate your interest. So you have your interest charge, let's say it's 5%, but there's also a APY, the annual percentage yield. And that's based off how you structure the loan. Are you going to be charging interest on a daily basis, a monthly, a yearly, and so forth? And then there's rules that each state has, so that way you cannot take advantage of people, which we call usury laws. So it's not just, so you have to be registered. So Watchtower, they didn't register with the state. They're a religion, but freedom of religion does not give you a right to be freedom of banking. Freedom of religion does not say, well, you have a right to have a religion, but you also have a right to be a bank within that religion. No, they're two separate things. You can be a religion, but if you want to be a bank also, you have to abide by the universal standards of accounting in your respective state. And there's limits on how much late charges you can charge and stuff like that. So That's why Watchtower will keep you very dumbed down on these matters, because Jesus does care about mortgage theft, and he's very well aware that Watchtower, Jehovah's organization here on earth, is very guilty of mortgage theft. And the Bible's answers may surprise you as to what Jesus plans on doing with you in Watchtower headquarters. So you may want to heed the warning in Revelation where it says, get out of her. Get out of an institution that calls itself a religion, Jehovah's organization here on earth, that is guilty of mortgage theft. And that's just one item. But this is why the writing department has been dumbed down. Because by keeping you perpetually stupid and ignorant, you can have elders that for 30 years have just made payments. Think about this. In Yuma, Arizona, they try to accuse me of like trying to steal money from a brand new Kingdom Hall that we were going to build. But the thing is we weren't going to take out a loan. We had raised enough money to where we had purchased off the land free and clear without any loans, and we were just going to keep on the contribution cycle. And in about 2-3 years, the property we would have enough money to pay for the property cash. So that could not happen. I stepped down. Shannon Gunderman, I went to high school with him and others. They do an audit trying to think like, oh, Gilbert must be like stealing funds. No such thing. As a matter of fact, there was a $100 discrepancy. It was my initial $100 deposit that I used to open up the bank account. That was unaccounted for. That was the only thing that was unaccounted for. But here's the point. That's not the point. The point is this. Shannon Gunderman, Mark DeAnda, city overseer, self-made millionaire. My brother-in-law, Paul DeAnda, Danny Ramos, millionaire, right? Ralph Nassaman, millionaire. All of these people. Rocky Ramos, business owner, right? What do they all have in common? They're morons. Complete, utter morons, because they continue making payments for over 30 years. Who in their right mind makes a payment for 30 years and say, are we kind of close to having this thing paid off? So when Javier Leon in Somerton, Arizona, probably about the most stupidest Jehovah's Witness elder there could be, because when he gives speeches, he wants to sound like Stephen Lett.
But more accurate would be to say, look at that little enemy of God.
Who in their right mind, after having listened to Stephen Lett, would want to go up on stage and sound like Stephen Lett? Javier Leon of Somerton, Arizona. Complete moron. And that's why he is the head elder in Somerton, Arizona, because he's going to keep paying for 30 years. Mortgage payment. This is why Jehovah's Witnesses will disfellowship people at the top who get an idea and say, have we paid off that loan yet? Out. And will replace you with a brand new young elder, a young man. And we'll let him have all the speeches. He can talk all he wants, but just keep sending that monthly payment for 30 years. We should send this video to Bank of America and Wells Fargo and says, guys, you have not seen mortgage theft. JP Morgan from Chase Bank, right, would be like, damn, how come I didn't think of that? You should get out of the banking business and get into the religion business. So this is why Jehovah's Witnesses will never write an article saying, does Jesus care about mortgage theft? And the Bible's answers may surprise you. And we know what happens, right, with the money changers. We know how Jesus feels about them. And we also know what Jehovah, the God of the Jehovah's Witnesses, what he did to the people that were stealing money. Remember when they stole money from Jericho? Remember that? They didn't work out really well. So Jesus cares about mortgage theft. Jehovah cares about mortgage theft. And the Bible's answers may surprise you. So I hope you like this video and you say, Gilbert, these are some other topics that Watchtower doesn't talk about in their magazines, right? Why are you not talking about the most consequential subjects of our time? So I hope you like this video, and I'll see you on the next one.
Now, if we think about it, we're not born as friends of God because we're born as sinful offspring of Adam. Actually, we think about it, we're born as enemies of God. Sometimes you'll hear people say of a little baby, "Look at that little angel." But more accurate would be to say, "Look at that little enemy of God."